Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Truth Talks. Today we have a discussion with Richard. Now we go very deep and vulnerable in this conversation. I really appreciated the fact that Richard was willing to share some of the things that he did, because I know that some of you listening or watching at home are really going to take a lot of value from this episode. It's a very emotional episode. We talked about some tough times in Richard's past, including struggles with substance abuse, as well as some dark points in his life and being homeless and different crazy situations like that. So again, I really appreciated being a part of this episode, and I hope you guys get a lot of value from it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Truth Talks. Today we have Richard on. Richard, how are you doing on this nice cold January day?
Pretty good, man. Just kind of chilling, getting ready to go to the gym after we're done this. Nothing crazy.
Right
How
on,
are you,
man.
man?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. I'm gonna have to do my steps inside today though, because I don't think I'm gonna brace the cold out there. But I'm really excited for this episode. Richard is somebody who has a pretty cool story, a pretty crazy story, and we were just talking before this about wanting to share that, and because I know some people can probably relate, have been through something or are going through something right now that they might be able to relate to. And I think I told Richard, like, hey, it'd be doing a disservice if we didn't share this kind of story. So before we hop more into the fitness stuff, I want you to give us maybe a brief kind of concise summary of like some interesting periods of your life. And I think the ones I'm talking about. So maybe just kind of give us a bit of your past before your whole fitness kind of endeavor started, because now obviously you're big into fitness, but like before that, like there's a whole other lifetime, another chapter that I think I want to touch on.
So, yeah, I'd say like growing up, I was always a really athletic kid, but by the time I was in like middle to end of high school, I got super overweight. Like I would just eat my feelings away. And at 18, I was up to about 300 pounds and like just obviously pretty miserable with my life. And then I got more into snowboarding, but where like getting into snowboarding, I did lose weight my first couple seasons living out west. Sorry, in like Whistler.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I got down at one point to like 170 pounds. Then I went back up to like 240, then back down. So I did a lot of yo-yoing diet-wise for years because obviously I was just trying to change everything at one time. And then at some point I discovered that I like smoking weed a lot and like drinking a lot and just got really into the party scene out there, which obviously at the time I thought I was really enjoying. Looking back, it's like maybe that wasn't the smartest decision. In like 2015, I went to school for photography, which is when I got super into the weed smoking. Like that's when I really, really got into it. And after I was done college for that, I moved back out west, and like I think it was within 3 or 4 months, I ended up getting kicked out of the hostel I was staying at and ended up on the street, sleeping in like the storage shed for that hostel I was staying at, still smoking weed constantly, and like choosing that over basically anything. Like I was eating fast food just to keep myself alive, and like smoking weed from sunup to sundown because that's all I could do, until at some point I ended up like I ended up like skateboarding out to this like cliff overlooking what's called the Howe Sound in Squamish, and like really contemplating life being over, and like just smoking as much weed as I could to get myself to actually go jump off of this cliff. But for whatever reason, there's these like two girls I remember just like sitting on the same cliff in hammocks, and just they sounded like they're having the best time basically anyone could ever have, and something about their joy just got something in me to not obviously do what I was there to do that day. And I still kept smoking a lot of weed, but after maybe another month or so, I reached out to my family and I was like, hey, like I'm not doing great and I need to come home. And like it just they didn't find out I was homeless at that point until like a month ago. Like they didn't ever really know about this. And like I took a Greyhound back across Canada. When I got back here, I met this girl after a few months of being home, and we ended up dating for like 3 years, and it was really good. I learned a lot about myself, but at some point it just wasn't cutting it for her anymore, which is fair. And the relationship ended, and in that, it kind of like pushed me to want to get into like the best shape of my life as like a due to that relationship and to that person, which I still have love for them. I don't obviously talk to them or anything anymore, but like it was that ending that pushed me into realizing that like I really want to take my health seriously, and ended up going maybe a little too deep into fitness to the point of before we met, I was going to the gym for like 3 to 4 hours a day, sometimes more. And in that, I guess I also met another girl like sometime about a year and a half ago, and that that was the thing that pushed me into actual bodybuilding. And that situationship kind of messed me up mentally for a while, but like that being messed up mentally really pushed me even further into fitness and like learning more about how to work out efficiently and like properly, and how to grow areas of my body that like really actually need to be grown, not just focusing on I like to lift heavy and that's it. And that was all. Today I have a photography business that, I don't know, it allows me to be free and do what I want with my days and do what I want with my life. And then I also have like an online coaching thing that I just started like a month or two ago, maybe a little bit more than that. But I don't know, man, I'm super grateful for where life has taken me from the times where I was literally standing on the edge of a cliff trying to not have a life anymore, you know?
Yeah, dude, I'm not gonna cry, but that's an emotional story, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that. Sorry, man, that kind of hit me in the feels a little bit. I'm not used to having that kind of stuff on the podcast, but yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think some key things that we'll take away for that for people watching is like, no matter how bad things get, like it's only up from there, right? Like when you're at like you're like, this is maybe the worst day of my life, whatever. Like there's always that next step to like start bring yourself back to a place where you're happy or happier, right? And I think what I feel like you did is, instead of masking all your emotions with food and substances, you almost took that and like pushed it into fitness in a way where it was like super extreme, because it seems like you take everything to the extreme kind of personality type, right? But then I think we've been able to kind of dial it back a little bit, so we're still getting that outlet, but without it needing to be almost harmful to you if you're doing it in too much excess, right? And we talked about like the injuries that we've had from going too heavy and ego lifting and stuff, but hey, if that, I'd much rather you go extreme with the working out than you with drugs and things that are kind of self-deprecating behaviors, right? So no, man, thanks so much for sharing that. And I guess, what do you think was, other than that moment, and I'm glad you kind of reached back out to your family and got some support, because we all need support at certain periods of life. But what was maybe some certain moments where you realized like, hey, I am now becoming a different person. My identity is shifting from like the Richard that was maybe partying or homeless or doing drugs or eating his feelings away, to now my identity is like, I want to focus on self-development and fitness and maybe more towards bodybuilding, that kind of stuff. Like, do you remember of any specific moments where your identity started to shift?
I don't know if there's any specific moments per se, but there's been like more or less awakenings over the last like 5 years of like just seeing myself go from like the guy who only believed that he'd ever do like 9 to 5 jobs and like wasn't really worth much of anything. I definitely didn't have much self-confidence. Honestly, I wasn't even really that confident in myself until the last maybe 6 to 12 months. I never really had that like I love me kind of thing. If I'm gonna put it into like very specific, I'd say it's been the last year or so when I started like journaling. So like writing out my thoughts every morning, and then setting 5 like emotional goals for the day and 5 things that I'm grateful for. I think those were the things that have really changed a lot for me, mixed with like just trying to find positive in situations instead of like growing up. The example that was set for me was finding the negative in basically every situation and like just kind of clinging on to the negatives. And like I know now that that's just a defense mechanism to keep like the pain from really hurting, but like I don't know, there's something to be said about like even driving, for instance. I was terrified of driving for a long time because like that was the example that was set growing up, and like I was always super negative, thinking that everyone was like out to get me on the road. But the days that I started believing that, like, say for instance, that person that's speeding and tailgating you is actually just trying to get to the hospital to see their mom before they die, is one of those like changes that takes driving from making you afraid to like feeling compassionate that this other person, you don't know their story, you don't know what's going on in their day, and like maybe they genuinely do need to be in a rush and they do need to be getting somewhere, right? So like I've tried to adopt that into all areas of my life and like go from this person that was negative and spiteful and quite hateful to someone that like is just on a self-growth journey. I wouldn't say that I don't have parts of that it's still in me, but like there is a part of me that's healing through that. And like on the first, every year I celebrate like my sobriety. So it's been 6 years since I smoked weed, which is complete sobriety, and then 7 years since I stopped drinking alcohol.
Nice. Congratulations.
It feels weird, man. Honestly, talking about any of this stuff to me just feels like a story that I made up. It doesn't feel like my life because I'm not even anywhere close to that person anymore. I don't know, dude. Life has been weird. Like I never expected to be where I'm at any point. I definitely never expected to be in the shape I'm in. And I can 100% say that I never really even expected to still be here by this age.
Yeah, man. Well, you freaking did it, man. And what a just complete identity shift, right? Like, just that's why I asked you that question. It's just like, you know, as you said, that person, that Richard is like, he's not even there. And like, there's gonna be bits and pieces that you might pop in every once in a while. You know, you feel okay here and there, but like that, you're just like a completely different person now. And again, inspiration for people at home. There's people that are not even close to that kind of situation of like, wow, I'm at like the low of my lows. They're not even maybe in that, but they still think there's no hope for them, right? Like people always like say, oh, what's the use of even trying? Like, it's not going to work out. But switching to that positivity. Now, you know, some people ask me too, like, why are you so positive? It's like, well, what? I'm going to be negative? It's like everybody talk to them, just going to be negative, and every situation I'm going to, as you said, like try to find the worst. Like no matter what example was set for you when you're younger, you can choose to form your own belief systems. And I think that's what you've kind of really started to do in the past little while too, right?
It's at some point in your life, you have to realize that like it's up to you to take life where you want it. Like you can't just keep holding on to these excuses of, oh, that's how I was raised, that's what I was taught. Like it's not easy to get out of those thought patterns because like it's literally what you were taught from the time you were a child, but it's necessary if you want to grow into a better person. And I also have come into the belief that everything we do in life and every path that we take happens for a reason. And the exact moment where that really got solidified for me was I was listening to a podcast episode by, I think it was Lewis Howes, or like the School of Greatness, which if people haven't watched that one, it's ridiculously good. Sorry, that's just the whole podcast as a whole, like not even just specific episodes. But there was someone they had on the show who they had a child die at like 8 or 9 years old, and obviously that would be a really heavy experience for any human. And they took that and they turned it into a thing where they help other families going through the same type of situation, right? So like I think they said that they've helped like over 1 million people since their own child has died. So like if their kid never passed away, those other people that they've helped never would have got help from anyone. So it goes down the path of like, no matter what you're going through and no matter where you are right now, it's all happening to turn you into the person that you're going to be, which to me, hearing that right now, if I'm the person I was 10 years ago saying that, I would be like, you're an idiot, man. Like that's not how life works. That's not how things go. But you just have experiences in life that show you that like no matter how hard you try to disregard that, that's the only, I think, fundamental truth of being alive, is that everything's happening to turn you into the person you're becoming. And like I think there's a internal part of us that doesn't want to believe that, especially if you grow up with like negativity around you. But it's it. Like that's the case, man. Like no matter what you do, you're becoming exactly who you're meant to be, and you're going through these difficult times so that you can help other people become who they're meant to be. Like, I'm sure you didn't just start into training because you were some happy person who always wanted to be in training. You started because there's a part of you that wants to help people. There was something
100%.
that you went through, right? Like, every one of us has shit that we're going through that is just creating this person we're meant to be. And for me, this feels so silly to say, but I have like Elon Musk size goals. Like, I want to have a company that is doing nothing but helping people, and like a Johnson and Johnson kind of thing based off of what do you call it, like fitness. I want something that's like literally every area encompassing fitness that can help people in every way. So like the end goal is a chain of gyms where you have like mental health help, you have like physio, chiro, or whatever sort of things that you can have in a place to help people, where obviously you're going to have to charge a decent bit to most. But if you have someone come in and they're like hurting for money, but they really could use it, then you have different rates for different people, right? Like, I still haven't worked that out fully, but I am more of a dreamer, and I'm currently like just trying to find that business partner that is more of an operator. So like I'm the type of person who knows where he wants stuff to go, but has a hard time making it go that way.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I don't know.
Cool.
All that to sum up is everything happens for a reason, and like we're all headed towards where we're supposed to be headed, even if it feels like you're having the worst years of your life right now.
Thanks for sharing that, man. No, it's good. It's good. I like big goals, man. I like big goals. You have to be like a little bit delusional. Like the people that have achieved the craziest things, they're a little bit delusional in a good way. And I like that. I'm delusional. I'm completely delusional. I'm like, I love the big goal setting too, man. But as you said, it's like all these challenges that you go through, each of them are just like either lessons or kind of the little things that are going to like shape you into kind of that next level. Because as you said, like for me too, like I turned like everything that fueled my fitness journey and my ambitions was all coming from anger and insecurity. But now I don't rely on those emotions anymore, but that's what started it, right? So it's like most of us are not starting in our self-development journey in like the most happy place ever. And then when you do see people that are like more into self-development and further along, you're like, screw them, or like, why did they're weird for thinking like that, or what are they?
Or they're just
about?
Lucky, or
yeah, or
they're just raised like that, or yeah. And it's so easy to believe that people were just like put in that place already. But the most hardworking, most developed people you'll see, especially when it comes to like entrepreneurship, I would put money that they struggled more than most people would ever believe, right? Like, I know I have some friends who are quite wealthy from being around the motorsports community, and I know every one of them has, even now, even when they're very wealthy people, has so many difficult parts of their life, right? Like it's literally part of being human. Life is suffering, but it's also whatever you make of that suffering and whatever direction you decide to take. So like, things can be difficult, but you can't allow them to just stop you. And having that thought in the back of your head of this is happening for a reason at every single moment. And obviously you won't be able to have that thought in your head every single moment, but having that in the back of your head over years of like kind of compounding into yourself, you'll slowly realize that like this relationship ending was so this can happen, or me being an addict right now was so I can learn how to not be one, and I can teach other people how to not be one. Or I don't know, there's literally paths on everything that can lead you towards seeing that, oh, that's why that happened, or oh, that's why this is currently happening. Or like, I don't know, it's just so easy to get caught up in believing that you're not good enough, or you're not like developing fast enough, or whatever sort of story you're telling yourself. But just remembering that it's happening for a reason, it will always take you to a positive place.
I love it, man. I love it. Super, super motivational. And I want to kind of bring that now into the fitness scene now, and kind of chat about like what we've been working on. And I actually met Richard backstage we were at the athletes meeting for a show. And then obviously we interacted backstage as well last year at Toronto Naturals, which is the show that we're gonna absolutely kick ass at this year. So I guess I want to hear some maybe key things, because I hear a lot of people that are really into fitness and already have great physiques, or like are coaches themselves. They're like, I don't need a coach, like I know everything, right? But like I have a coach. Most of the we coach a lot of coaches, and then most of the best coaches I also know also have coaches. So like, how do people get over that mindset of like, oh, I know what to do, I don't need a coach? Like, and maybe you've had that mindset before. Maybe I used to have that mindset before, but like,
I still have that.
Yeah,
I have it right now.
Yeah.
But it's your ego, man. It's literally
Mhm.
nothing else. It's your ego saying that I'm good enough to do this and I can do it all on my own. But can you? Like, should you? Not
Mhm.
even can you. Should you do it all on your own? Like, will you ever find as much joy doing stuff just by yourself as you could doing it with people around you? And I mean, like, that's not even a question. Literally, the answer is no, you can't. And
Mhm.
like, also in having a coach, which I noticed at this last show, you have someone that can be there, and like it allowed me. The first two shows, I just felt super overwhelmed the entire time. I just was sitting there like feeling super anxious. In this last one, I had people reach out afterwards and be like, "Dude, like, how are you so like calm and just like
Mhm.
sitting there like in a zen state?" It's like, well, I don't have to think of anything, so all I have to do is relax myself, right? Like, no, I wasn't anywhere close to where I wanted to be physically for that show, and I definitely dropped the ball on the prep side of things, and that's on me. But again, everything happens for a reason. I needed to learn some sort of lesson by fucking that up. Sorry.
It's okay. You can swear on the phone.
um, it's like, I think to answer your question, no,
Ego,
I,
you said.
I, yeah, it's ego, dude. Like, your ego wants you to believe that you can do everything on your own, but
Yeah.
if I look back, the day that my ego began dying was one of the scariest days of my life. So I had just gotten back from out west, and I don't think I've ever actually told this story. Um, I've just gotten back from out west, and I was going to hang out with some dude I was smoking a lot of weed with when I was out there. And at this point, obviously, I was still smoking a lot of weed. But I went over. They were in like Orangeville or something, whatever. It was really far away from my place, and we were smoking a bunch of weed, and someone brought some mushrooms out, and I hadn't really eaten mushrooms that much in my life by this point. Actually, I still haven't, but like this was the last time I did them. And it was one of those like, oh, I'm not feeling it, so I'll just have a bit more. Oh, I still don't feel it, have a bit more. I ended up eating an entire like Ziploc bag full of mushrooms. So that turned into me going into the darkest places of my subconscious, believing that these people were trying to kill me, which led me to calling like emergency services, ending up in the hospital, being like mentally fried for an entire probably day. And then after this situation happened, waking up in the hospital, I didn't have a jacket or anything anymore. And I think there was a cop there that was like asked to drive me to wherever I was trying to go. And he just brought me to like a coffee shop, and he was listening to what I was saying. He didn't care. He had zero care for what I was saying. Um, and I was left in the cold with like no jacket, no idea what to do. But that day showed me that like there is good in people no matter what sort of situation you're in. Because I went inside it was a Tim Hortons. I asked them like, hey, like my phone, I don't have any service on my phone. I can't use my phone to call anyone. Do you mind if I use your phone? So I called my mom, which was a pretty big pattern in my life up to this point. But I called my mom, asked her like, hey, could you send me some money to make this happen so I can get home? And she did. I didn't end up needing the money, but the Tim Hortons itself called me a taxi. Who that taxi driver took me to a go station for free. He didn't charge me anything for it. And then he talked to the go bus driver about what was happening for me. And like that go bus driver let me on the bus, took me, it was like an hour and a half drive to the closest train station. They talked to the train attendants who let me take the train home for free. And then another taxi driver just happened to take me the rest of the way for free as well. So it was like a pattern of people just seeing this person hurting, this person in a really rough place, and
Helping.
just like, yeah, helping. And I think that's really easy to not see until you're actually in a situation like that. And then even when you are, it's really easy to be like, oh, that's just happenstance. It just happened. It's not like something that's normal, but it is. It's a really normal thing. Right? Like, I don't know. It's
100%. It's like
that
being
was my ego
okay getting
death.
help. Yeah, yeah. And it's okay asking for help too. And like I always a quote I like to use a lot is like Michael Jordan had a coach, Tiger Woods had a coach. It's like the best people that are the best like at what they do always have a coach. So it's like, and what you're special snowflake, you don't need one. You know what I mean? So it's like
Multiple coaches.
yeah, multiple coaches for different things, right? So I think it's important to recognize that. And I guess we're coming for some pretty big goals at this show in the spring here. And I think definitely there's been a lot of learning and a lot of good communication. And I know we learned a lot from the last show and the prep of the last prep, and like, okay, what it takes to like really get to that level of like elite physique and especially conditioning for the show. These guys are not coming in out of shape now, right? They're coming in with crazy physiques. And
Yeah, man.
you have a really crazy foundation of muscle, and your shape is pretty crazy. And now we're just goal of bringing that conditioning. So like, I guess what was the mindset shift kind of previously when you were doing things more solo versus, now kind of, has there been any shifts with like your belief systems around competing or fitness in general?
Oh,
Or
100%, dude. Again, like it was all ego. I was doing everything based off of ego, thinking that, oh, I'm so much bigger than these people, so there's no way they can beat me. So I wouldn't focus on the things that in natural bodybuilding are actually probably more important than size, right? Like conditioning, stage presence, posing. Anyone can be big, but like, can you do those three parts? And like the answer for most of us, myself included, until now has been no, you can't. Like it's allowing your ego to get in the way will never take you to the places that you need to be. So like putting that ego to the side, knowing that you still need an ego because everything needs a balance, but also knowing that you aren't better than everyone. You aren't actually, even on just saying that, like the only reason we believe that we're better than everyone is so that we don't feel like we're less than everyone. Right? Like your ego wants you to believe that you're the best person ever because it's defending the little tiny child inside of you that feels like you're not worth anything. So in what you're asking, everything changed. Like all of what I believe in this has changed because I have goals and this stuff that I don't think is really actually possible fully, but I refuse to accept that. And like, if you want to go really far, you have to do whatever you have to do to get there. And a lot of the time that's taking your ego, putting it to the side, and then asking it why you feel this way. And talking to those little versions of you that are the hurt inside of you and seeing what's happening and just being open to the fact that we're all equals, dude. No matter what. Like I'm not better than this next person. I'm not better than the person ahead of me. They're not better than me either, though. Like we're all equals, trying our best to go through the situation that we were given in life and just improve.
100%, man.
So since I started bodybuilding, every part of my outlook on life has changed.
I like it, man. I really like that. And I think a lot of times when people are insecure deep down, and even I used to find myself in this thought pattern as well. When you're insecure deep down, you almost like want to tell people about the good things you've done, or like overinflate things, or like justify why other people are doing better than you. It's like, oh, well, so-and-so had this, or so-and-so had that, or, oh, but it's easier for them because of this reason. And then you need to tell people, okay, these are my accomplishments. But in reality, the people that seem the most confident typically are actually the most insecure deep down. because they're kind of putting that front to protect themselves, right? So it's just kind of learning that self and doing some self-reflection. And again, I came from being a relatively insecure kid, so a lot of times I was kind of justifying, oh, this person has better genetics than me, that's why their physique is better, you know what I mean? Or like, you know, they get better marks than me because, you know, they're just smarter, they were born like that, or they have that tutor, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like we justify it because it protects ourselves, is what kind of I think you're saying.
Yes.
And going back to your extreme goals, I almost think it doesn't matter if they're truly attainable or not. If that's what gives you the dream and the drive to take big action, then who cares if you're actually going to get to them or not? I'm not saying you will or won't, but it doesn't matter, because it drives your ambition and your action. And that's the most important thing of why we have goals and dreams, right? So, I mean, I would like to definitely, at least in this show, I would like us to definitely be taking home some hardware for sure.
I'd be surprised if we don't.
Yeah, if we bring the conditioning, like I would, bare minimum, I want top 3 in your class.
Yeah,
because these are big classes, so that's a big feat if you can come top 3 in class.
I'd be surprised if we don't, dude. Like, the only goal I have for this show, which obviously I'll accept other things, but like I won't accept it for myself, is to win the overall. Like, it doesn't make sense to go into something not wanting to win, and that doesn't mean I'm better than other people. That just means I'm better than me at everything I've done so far. Like, if I want to go back and touch on one thing, and then I have a little thing I want to talk about as well. But like, my baseline is insecurity, dude. Like, I am a deeply insecure person. That doesn't mean that I am an insecure person per se. It means that like everything that I am comes from feeling like I'm not worthy and I'm not good enough. But that also allows me to see that I am, you know, like it allows me to see that maybe I believe I'm not good enough, but like, what is good enough anyways? Does it really matter if you're good enough for other people if you feel like you're good enough for yourself? You know, like finding self-love is a huge thing. And I was listening to Ronnie Coleman talk yesterday. I posted this to my story, even if you haven't seen it, but like, he started out with his Olympia career, for instance, like going every Olympia he went to, he was coming like 10th or 15th or like doing terrible, but he just kept going. He just kept trying to improve and do better and just better himself. And then eventually got to a point where he got so good that no one else could compete anymore. Like, he was like a god per se in bodybuilding, right? Like, he was just so good that you couldn't do anything. And it's not because he was gifted, it's because he just kept nailing down on the fundamentals and like practicing the little tiny things and improving on those and not giving up. And I think a thing that we get stuck on a lot as humans is perfection, and thinking that like we should know exactly what we're doing when we start something. But like, how could that ever be the case? You know, like, everything I've gotten into in life, I got into because someone else told me I would never be good at it. And like, obviously there was a part of me that was already interested, but like photography, for instance, I remember very clearly being horrendous at it and telling a friend that like, oh, I think this is super interesting, maybe one day I'd like to do it. He's like, dude, you will never be good at photography. And I took that as like a challenge to be like, okay, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then that got into, obviously I have it as a business now. I do it like as a way to make money. And the same thing happened for bodybuilding. I had some friends in the gym be like, oh, you'll never be any good at this stuff. Like, you don't have the genetics for it. Like, you don't have this, you can't do that. It's like, I'm going to show you that you're wrong. You know, like, so that in itself, though, that comes from insecurity. You trying to prove other people wrong is your insecurity showing. So you can take insecurity and use it as a superpower, just like anything else in your life, right? Like, you can use little tiny things that you think are actually setbacks as the thing that propels you forward.
I love it, man. I love it. I think it's like, prove yourself right. That's the main thing I think is most important. And you can kickstart your journey with that. I call it like FU energy, like F you guys, I'm going to do it type thing. But you don't need to carry that negative energy forever. Like, what gets you started doesn't need to keep you going. And I think now, hopefully, even if you use FU energy to get started, then now it's like, the thing that's keeping you going is just like self-appreciation and like goal-driven competitiveness and like building yourself up and self-development. That's like the thing that keeps you going. And maybe we can I do have another call in 10 minutes, so I want to make sure I get prepped for that. But I want you to kind of give one final thoughts on like anything that you feel like people who feel like they're maybe down in the dumps or at a lower point in life, they don't have to be completely at the lowest, but a lower point. What is one thing you think that they need to focus on right now to get themselves out of that?
Finding ways to love themselves and see the things inside of them that are worth love, because we all have it. Even if you're like literally, I don't know that people like that would ever see a podcast, but even if you're on like heroin, living on the street with the worst things humanly possible going on, there's part of you that's lovable, and you just don't see that right now. So just finding ways to love you is the only thing to focus on. Just because, like, if you don't love you, then how can anyone else ever love you? And if you do love you, then you'll have an infinite source to pull from to give to other people so that they can find love for themselves, you know, like,
yeah,
love you, find ways to love you. That's it. Like, there's nothing else.
That's awesome, man. That's really awesome. Yeah, that's so awesome. And also, by showing yourself love, you show other people that they can also show themselves love, right? It's like, oh, okay, I see this, right? So I love it, man. This is powerful. Also, before we close out, I just want to say thank you. I know some of those things are not easy to share. And a lot of people that go through these types of situations don't share them openly. So I want to thank you for being vulnerable, because I'm sure there's at least one person that's going to listen to this that's going to be like, man, I took some.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I do this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like sharing these things, but I'm talking to me that used to be that person. Mm-hmm. So I want that version of me that never got this message from other people to know that you're not alone and other people struggle with the same stuff. And like, it's easy to see me who I am today and not think that I went through anything. But I think I'd be doing a disservice to people to not share that, like, it's not a competition, but I would put money that I've struggled more than most people I've ever met in my life, right? Like, I went through a lot of pretty seriously dark times. I know there's people that go through even more, but if I can go through stuff and I can get to where I am today, then you can too, because we're all just humans and we're all just trying our best to do better for each other and for ourselves. And just fall into things that you love, fall into things that you're passionate about. And one day you'll look back and you'll be like, how did I get where I am right now? I don't understand. But it's just little steps, one foot in front of the other, walking up the mountain that is your life.
Doesn't all happen at once, man. We're going to take it from 300-pound addicted to substances to hopefully, top 3 placings at physique shows. That's what we're going for.
We're going for like at least a natural Olympia, if not something else.
Let's kick some ass, man. I'm ready for this. I've been ready for the whole time. I'm always ready in the pocket. But thanks again, man. We're going to close out here, and we'll get you back on for sure in a few months so people can keep up with how things went.